Hello, Stone Apes and others who are curious about the healing powers of psychedelic medicines. Welcome to the Stone Ape Reports. I'm your host, Stuart Preston. Each episode, I talk to another Stone Ape, somebody who has experienced the transformational powers of psychedelics, or the practitioner who works with these medicines. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Michele, who had recreational experiences with psychedelics earlier in life, and then later rediscovered the healing powers of entheogens, LSD, Psilocybin, Ketamine, and Ayahuasca. Her story is one of healing from addiction to opioids, trauma, PTSD, as well as finding spirituality and reconnecting with her estranged mother. Please enjoy this episode with Michele. Why don't we get this started off by giving us a little bit of a background about the things, the struggles, challenges, opportunities, whatever was going on in your life before you rediscovered psychedelics and the benefits of them. What were the things that you were looking to get help with?
Okay, well, what brought me my first use of psychedelics in general was as a teenager, and it was purely recreational. However, even as a child or a teenager, I had some negative home life. And I found that through, at the time, acid and microdot, it was much more powerful back in the mid 80s. It took me out of the pain. And from a very young age, I was looking to avoid what I found I have a tendency to read between the lines when I feel someone is lying. I just have, I've always had a sixth sense that filled me with anxiety. I was always filled with anxiety and looking for some way to temper it. So to fast forward to, like, say, age 17, I went to a psychiatrist to deal with, like, why do I have a nervous stomach? What is all this? And the first thing they did was give me benzos. They gave me Xanax at 17 years old. So that was the beginning of my journey into the big pharma addiction thing. And this was before the pill mills. This was mid 80s. So
right.
I had a lot of experience with substances, and the substances that I was using at the time were, as I said, to once again try to remove myself from toxic energy.
Right.
Yet I would always have to return back as I was still a teenager living at home. Unfortunately, just to fast forward, I ended up using opioids and became opioid tolerant and basically a drug addict. And that was, as I was living that life, I was also going through many, let's say, PTSD traumatic events that I simply suppressed just to keep on surviving and surviving and surviving. And so then we're going to fast forward all the way to, say, 2010, where I was living in Manhattan and very happy. I have always been I consider myself a survivor. I consider myself somebody who has navigated life without family, really, being estranged. And so in 2010, when my landlord died, suddenly the rent was raised like $2,000 more. I spent a year in court, and I basically lost everything. Like, I went from being in control of my life to losing my apartment to realizing there was really no fix anymore because Manhattan was changing, and there was nobody, my quote friends were really not stepping up. And as I was trying to figure out how to fix, because in my life I'd always been able to manage things. However, I got to a point where I found myself in such a dark place that my boyfriend at the time was using shrooms, psilocybin all the time. Now, even though I had as a teenager psychedelic experience and loved them because it was laughter, it was my escape. But now it was more of I needed something to, like, almost as a primal scream, like I felt like I was disappearing into all of the minutia of all of so many problems that so many of us are facing today. Yeah. So I took an eighth of psilocybin and felt warmth and felt peace, and at the same time would go through almost as I said, primal scream therapy, come through it. And it would be frightening, I'm sure, if somebody just walked in and saw me, hysterical, thinking, but somebody was sitting with me and watching with me. And after every single time, because every weekend I would go up to where I was going and I would take psilocybin, knowing it became almost a type of therapy for me to get through this awful time of homelessness. Where am I living? Like, how did this happen to me? This doesn't happen to me, but it was happening. And so as this was going on and I was rediscovering psychedelics in a way that I had never thought would be possible, because I had become so angry by that point, so jaded with life in general, that the rage was toxic. And this medicine was literally, I could feel it lifting. I could feel it getting easier to deal with the issues. So I really hadn't quite put it on psilocybin yet, but I knew that was where I was finding the quote medicine that I could not find anywhere else. So let me
ask you a question. Your boyfriend had, mushrooms. You had done psychedelics at a younger age. Yes. But you say you were kind of in an angry, you were dealing with substances, a lot of anger. What was it in your mind that got you to think to yourself, maybe this is the solution? Maybe I should try these mushrooms?
The fact that on top of when I lost my apartment, about 3 years later, I was diagnosed with something called spinal cervical stenosis, which now is a pain disease and a degenerative. And at the age, I was literally just bowled over, and now I am dealing with doctors. I am dealing with medications that, as a drug addict, I had kicked. I had kicked them, and I became a drug counselor. I became a therapist, helping, but was not allowed to do harm reduction. And I was finding it was just a vicious cycle. It was this crazy cycle of just nobody was really finding the peace or the help. So I realized that Big Pharma was definitely just hurting me and making me crazy. My insurance would not cut. So I was in pain. So the pain due to the cervical and spinal stenosis, as well as the emotional pain, finding no relief, as they would give me oxycodone, they would give me shots, they would give me whatever, they wanted surgeries. But at the end of the day, most of these things would either fall through or it wasn't covered. It was always some bureaucratic nonsense. And I turned back to the one thing I knew was working, shrooms. Yeah. And when I had been using heroin as an addict, like a legitimate addict for about 10 years of my life. Wow. What really what truly made me stop when I say running, when you get that detox, when you're starting to go into withdrawal, you're starting to say, I can't do this, I can't do this. I began smoking pot again. And the pot, because I hadn't smoked pot in so many years, I was like, oh, I'm calm. Wait, let me just I can get through this. And I wanted to share this information with the people I was working with, my clients, harm reduction. If you're smoking crack, but pot is keeping you from running out the door, smoke some crack. I mean, excuse me, smoke some pot. Right. Smoke some pot.
Yes.
And I found it like absurd that I simply was not allowed to say what I knew worked, because
right.
Yeah, I mean, here they are hiring me. They know that I have all of this experience, yet they don't want me to share what I know works. So it became I was very dismayed by that, by even the drug treatment, how they would close their eyes and simply stick to what, if you're an opioid tolerant or an addict, you basically have two choices in America. Methadone, which is liquid handcuffs, no matter whether, I mean, you could not be using, but it's still, you must be at a clinic at least once a week. Yeah. It does not allow you to truly get on with your life. It's a lie. It's a lie. But right. Yes, it may save your life for a minute, but it will also take your life from you in the sense of living. Yeah. So I was in pain management, but that meant that I had to deal with this nonsense methadone clinic and getting thrown, narcotic medications that I had, as I said, kicked, and it was becoming too much. And I just said, because when something becomes suffering fools, this was suffering stupidity, to the point where I knew that my mental health was in trouble. Like, the depression was getting to be too much. The pain was too much. There had to be another way. So it was the mushrooms and the psilocybin that gave me hope, that at least started to point the way to another path. And
nice. So tell us about that. Tell us about the experiences and how it showed you that new path, and kind of what the experience and the outcomes were.
Well, okay. The very first thing was the general feeling of warmth. For me, it was always that first feeling, because of, as I said, the pain, physical pain. I would close my eyes and feel those snake-like figures warming like around my body, and it was beautiful. And I also began to feel love, which I found astonishing, since I thought I was filled with rage. But when I was going through these, what I would almost call therapeutic doses, I was able to make connections and feel love again, which I didn't know I would ever be able to feel again. So that was huge for me. That was like, okay.
Yeah, that is huge.
Yes. I mean, I was a very angry, independent young woman, for my whole life, since, honestly, from the age of 12 and on, basically, I've been doing this on my own. So, yes. So to feel love, and because I had been a therapist, and because I'm interested in sociology, neuroscience, just the zeitgeist, just our society, what makes people tick. As we all know, our formative years are the most important, and right. Without going into too much details, mine were not filled with love. They were not filled with that validation that one is worthy. It was that. I always was running from love. If somebody said they loved me, I got scared and I would sabotage it. And so here I am, I'm 40 something, and now I'm rediscovering psychedelics and realizing this may be like the way. This is the only thing that has made me feel love. I mean, maybe, yeah. So this is a big deal. And from that point, that's when I started hearing about ayahuasca, and I just couldn't get enough of the information. Unfortunately, I found that most of them were retreats in Peru or whatever that I simply didn't have the resources to get to. I was lucky enough, however, that I was able to attend a weekend ceremony, and it truly is medicine. That's all I can, people, I don't even like using the word drugs. It's such a shame. It's almost, I equate it to when people take, quote, the word back, like you can't call me this anymore. Right. So I almost feel like we need to stop using the word drugs, because it's like associated with what I call the second wave, the 60s movement, because we had the indigenous peoples using these medicines for thousands of years. And then in the 60s, basically, I think they blew it. That's the only way I can say it. They blew it. And they gave it they gave the government so much ammunition to say, look, see, and, the false narratives, became, and suddenly LSD therapy, boom, was gone. And I actually saw a documentary with one of the wonderful actors from the 30s, Cary Grant, his whole thing was about his LSD therapy, and how his last treatment was when he felt love, and he was like, I don't need to do this anymore. I am healed. I know who it was just, so powerful. Clear and powerful how this could be utilized. So when the government made it a class 1 and shut down all the studies, basically I blame the tune in. What did Mr. Leary say? Yeah. What did you say? Tune in, drop in, and
tune
drop
in,
out.
tune out, drop out.
Right. Yeah. That's not the best. That's, if you really want to destroy a movement, that's a really great way of doing it. So it was very unfortunate. So I started discovering through TED Talks, etc., and just starting to focus on people who really had either been at, like McKenna, who had been at the beginning, and saying, I need to do ayahuasca, but how am I going to do this? So when I had the opportunity, I jumped on it. And Preston, it truly was the most amazing experience I've ever had in my life with any substance whatsoever. It is people who do not go with the correct intent are going to be disappointed, to say the least. But it was a weekend ceremony, so it was only 2 evenings. It wasn't like an 8-day retreat, 8-day retreat. Right. So the first evening, just to give people out there an idea of what this medicine, it really does teach you. First of all, I also did it in a teepee. It was wonderful. Like it was with a shaman. It was beautiful. But the energy right next to me happened to be somebody who brought in a cell phone and was a Trumpster. And he starts talking politics. And I'm like, what is going on here? So the point is, I had a very difficult first evening. And I think it was because I did not stand up for myself and take control, because I have like physical and neck issues. I just wasn't comfortable. Literally, it was a lot of people. And I didn't take control. I should have brought the attention to the people who really already knew something was wrong, but it just wasn't being taken care of. So the next night, I made sure that I took control, and I got my position right by the fire. I was comfortable. I was not near anybody talking politics. I made sure I was in my own space. And immediately when I took the medicine, what I asked for, the only thing I asked for was, I just want to know that beauty still exists in the world. That was my intent. That was it. That was it. I just need to know. And Preston, I get emotional because it was so, within 4 minutes of me taking the next night's dose, I saw the flames began to dance in colors, and it was magical, because it was, and I call her the goddess. I call her the goddess. She, the mother Ayahuasca, and the visions that, yes, exactly. And the visions that I saw, it was like she was peeking in and out with me. It was almost, I was giggling. I was literally giggling, having this little conversation with her. And the shaman apparently saw that I was in a wonderful place and nobody needed to worry about me. So he actually came over to me and he started speaking to me in Spanish. And somehow I understood him. And it was amazing. And I knew what he was saying is, because they say, there's an altar if you want anything to be, a prayer. So I gave him a picture of my cat. That is like my one love, for real. And I just knew that's what he was saying. I gave him a picture, and right to the altar. So I went outside and I saw shooting stars. I had, the howl, not the coyotes howling. I was one with nature. I was one with God. I was just, and when I say God, I don't mean in the Judeo-Christian sense. I mean in the higher power. So the spiritual feeling that I needed to be reminded is there. She let me know it was still there. And the beauty that as I said, feeling that you're one with nature, one with God, it was magical. It was perfection. I could not get that smile off my face for about 2 weeks. And and it was very transformative for me in the sense that it took me from a very negative place where I wasn't sure that this existed anymore. I really didn't know. And for me, the type of human being that I am, it's very important that there is balance, that there's peace, that there is beauty. And we're living in such difficult times. I maybe there wasn't, but she showed me that no, keep going down this path. This is the right. Nice. I didn't even throw up. I mean, it was, that was most people's biggest fear with ayahuasca, is they're going to be so nauseous, so sick. And the first evening,
it's not even a fear. It's just purging.
Exactly. It's purging. And it was like a symphony, I'm not going to lie, all around me. It was a bit, but the medicine somehow enables you to endure it, even if you're hearing it. And for me, I didn't purge once.
Wow.
But because the first night had been so difficult, I was like a little thrown off. I was confused. I was like, Okay. And almost as if the universe put this young man there just to speak to me and say, no, stay, stay, stay. Just, and then he said, I don't know if this is true, Preston, but he said, if you didn't
Right.
purge, your chakras are in alignment. Now, if that's true, then hey, I was like, more power to me, right on. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I'm doing the right thing, So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just felt like as I'm going further down this rabbit hole, it's only showing me exactly what I was hoping to see. And
Nice.
and as far as the ayahuasca goes, it's such a, when people think it's not a I don't even know if I really need to do ayahuasca again, because it is a medicine. So when you
Yeah.
don't need, which is why it's such a much better answer than the big pharma, because you're addicted, you're dependent, and they keep you there, where these medicines, which can give you clarity and can produce endorphins that will take that pain, like physical pain, away.
Yeah.
You're not addicted to, and yet we excrete it in our brains. We all have it in our bodies, but they have it as a class one, like it's except in a few, Colorado, I believe. Colorado, there's just a couple states that I think have decriminalized it for when they say they can use it for religious reasons, per se.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in fact, if I had the resources, I would be in Colorado. I like right now, it's tough because I feel the answers for my issues, my mental health, my physical being, my physical pain. It's all so close, but yet so far, due to, I blame the powers that be. It's just as simple
Yeah.
as
It's
that.
just hard. The access is hard. So you know what the answer with the medicines are. It's just access to them is
Mm-hmm.
difficult. Yeah.
Exactly.
What
And go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes.
what I want to know kind of, you talked about the things you struggled with and a couple of your experiences. Were there any other experiences you wanted to share before we start talking about kind of what the transformations are like and how things are today?
I'm sorry. The question being as far as what?
Any other medicines
Oh,
that you had an
sure.
experience with
Yeah.
that had a big impact?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I actually wrote last night. I actually wrote a list, and I was put them in different. All in different groups as to how I would equate them with the quote Western world of medicine. LSD equates laughter, color. Mescaline, laughter. Ketamine, PTSD therapy. Ayahuasca, medicine. Salvia, nothing. Pot, medicine. Shrooms, psilocybin, most transformative for inner awareness, a type of therapy, medicine, everything combined. So
Yeah.
for me, as I said, the cannabis, I must give a lot of, cannabis is, as far as a pain management, it should be available to everyone. Now, I mean, even I have a marijuana card for my issues, but the
Right.
dispensaries are ridiculous where I am because they only have oils and not flat. So, it's this constant feeling like I have to, and I'm sure not just me, many, 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 many people, ducking and dodging, trying to find a source that you can trust and blah, blah, blah. But what why I'm doing this is because as we are all watching, we are watching what I would call, this once again, not in the literal term, but like the demons are running amok, like if something doesn't give, if the powers that be don't fix whatever needs to be fixed, then it's up to each of us to really take a stand and say, no, if we're not going, you cannot make us addicts and then handcuff us into either your methadone clinics or your Subutex, where then if you're on an opioid for pain, you can't take it anyway. It's greed, it's capitalism. We are all human beings that are worthy and deserving of love. And if you are not able to get love from, say, your from the the Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the very bottom, right? Love, 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 love. Well, at least this will open your heart and allow you, for me at least, I should say, for me, it allowed me to trust people where for 20 years, I was not able to. So, I really give credit to these substances for getting me through, I would say, the most difficult. And I have lived I've lived quite a life so far.
Yeah.
And I've managed to, as I said, usually work it out, figure it out. But the last 10 years, between the pain, between being diagnosed with this disease, pain, which is like a universal joke on me, I believe, because to go through being a drug addict, kicking it, a drug counselor, now being stuck in this mishmash of medical nightmare, with the opioids, and you just don't want to even be on them, but you can't. It's, instead of going round and round and round like I'm doing right now, as I'm going round and round with these words, enough, like, not to bring Trump into it, but like how it's enough is enough. Well, that's how I feel with this. Enough is enough, and this is the third wave. This really is the third wave that we have as far as psychedelics coming into our universe, at least in this country. The second wave, as I said, in the 60s, they blew it. The first wave, indigenous, the second wave, the 60s. This is the third wave. And I am just screaming, please open your eyes. Please, try to open your mind. Life is about evolving. It's about moving forward. It's about, like, I had not spoken to my mother in 20 years under ketamine, which is a dissociative, but under ketamine, I called her and just to say, I love you. And it's, and literally saying, I love you. You don't even need to call me back. I just want, just because, and it started a dialogue with us. After, so, 20 years of freaking therapy couldn't make me, but, a few, ketamine, boom. And so when you see 2 and 2 is 4, you have to say 2 and 2 is 4. And unfortunately,
so are you out there talking about this? I mean, I know there can often be a stigma attached, and that's really kind of the point of this podcast. But are you able to talk to your mom? You called her to tell her you love her. Are you able to talk to her about your medicines? Do you talk to your friends and family and all that stuff?
I actually made it very clear that it was because I was on ketamine that I called her. And, she, because I had, had a past as a teen, when I was younger with as an addict, she really, and I can understand, could not really equate any, quote, drug, being, a positive, but she could not deny that her daughter just said, "I love you," after 20 years
Right.
of us not talking. So she, yeah, so I have no problem, because if I have knowledge, and in this day and age with so much false narratives out there, so much misinformation, it's almost like 1984, the book 1984, or Animal
Yeah.
Farm. Like if I'm not going to be willing to tell those who are closest to me what is working, then I'm not really doing what I feel I should be. I'm not,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you.
I
So,
mean, yeah.
I'm going to wrap this up. I want to know what you think is a key to a good experience. It sounds like you've had a lot of amazing experiences with different medicines, different entheogens. And it's interesting, even in your weekend ayahuasca experience, you mentioned how your setting was different in both nights. One with the loud, obnoxious person next to you, and the next one. So overall, what advice do you give, or in general, when it comes to having a good transformational experience? What do you think is important to having that?
Well, if you're going to do it with, if you're going to not go to a quote ceremony where, where you have a shaman and somebody taking you through it, I would suggest simply being with somebody you love or trust, or feel that no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. They have you.
Yeah.
They got you. And I think that's really all it. I mean, just open your mind, open your heart. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I actually had an ego death on ketamine, even an out-of-body experience where I did think I was dead. And it took the fear of death away from me because of it. Like now I'm not afraid to die. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm saying like death, suddenly, an ego death. To be honest, I am thinking of writing a book called Ego Death for Everyone, because we could all just experience that. I think it would change people's perspectives immensely once they can lose that damn ego, the hubris, the whatever we need to do to keep ourselves safe. But it's really, yes. So I'm sorry. So I don't know if I answered your question. So I would
You did.
Okay, yeah. Basically, just be with somebody that you love, or not. I shouldn't say that you love. That there is just such a sense of trust, and just go for it, and just go for it. But have an intent. Always, don't just take something just to get as high as you can and hope to see blah blah blah. So I mean, especially with the medicines like ayahuasca, etc., you may not even have visuals, so you need, if you really want to try to step back and look in the mirror and really try to, with me, with the PTSD, the ketamine got me through so much of the PTSD traumas, because I was able to go back and remember everything. I could smell things. I could, I was there, but I was able to safely come back from the trauma when and not be a mess. So it all depends. I would think on why people are feeling the need for help me out, for a transformative experience. But for me, I just think it's about being with somebody you trust, or has your back, and open your heart, and let it flow. Just let it flow. And that is also, I think, one of the most important things that it's for me. Forgiveness. I learned. I just letting it go. Everybody, it's very easy to say, just let it go. But in reality, most people, it's very, human nature. So this
it's hard to let it go.
Yes, but so I'm looking at a list of medicines as I'm speaking to you, and every single one of them literally will teach you how to let it go. It will just show you. It will say, look, why you're, it's so obvious to feel. Why would you not want to feel connected and loved?
Right.
Why
Right. Yeah.
would you want to hold on to this anger and this hate? Life is so short. It's so fleeting. And in this day and age, particularly with the fentanyl epidemic, I believe that they should be, it has been proven that, and I know for a fact that it helps with, addiction. And man, if they would just, allow us to have shrooms or whatever, I can't say I guarantee you, but since over 70% of people, there's so many stats that prove that these, so I find it, once again, a little bit, this is why I'm doing this, because even though we're seeing the stats, they're not moving fast enough. It's like this state, oh, yes, we're going to pass laws for marijuana being legal. No, well, that was 4 years ago. Nothing's happened yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
yep.
So I feel it's on us, really. We cannot wait for them. We need to push them. We need to say, no, enough is enough. Like, make these things legal. If I can go to war and be killed, then I think I should be allowed to ingest a natural substance for myself,
I agree.
Yeah. Bill Hicks used to say something that this may sound a little cold, but I agree. In fact, I had written it down when I was on ketamine, when I was journaling, saying that I truly believe that, and it's all scribbled, you have to navigate through. I said, I think I figured out why society is so fucking ignorant about the use and implementation of, quote, drugs as a tool. Don't forget I was on ketamine, as a tool for connecting with each other as human beings. It's because most people are just too stupid to handle the real truth that you must navigate through while going through a, quote, trip or under the influence or on another realm. If people were educated, we could have a utopian society like the Mayans, but it all goes back to capitalism, money, greed, instead, love in the moment, people, idiocracy. Nothing wrong with feeling like you're in a Disney movie, LOL. And it goes on and on. It's just like a rambling, thing.
Leave it to Bill Hicks to put it so bluntly.
So bluntly, when I have my little conspiracy theories about why he was suddenly had pancreatic cancer so quickly. But can I just finish with reading a little quote from him, just to remind everybody?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. This is, this man was saying this when I was growing up, during the tough love, just say no days. And he was brave enough to talk about how the disinformation and shrooms was his drug of choice, as far as when he would, that was the only thing he was really interested in. And he said, and I'm quoting, so what about the good news stories? Why can't we ever hear on the news that, quote, today a young man on acid realized all matter is energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves. This is just a ride. We can change it. We can change it at any time we want. It's only a choice between love and fear. And I believe that's where we are at right now. There is so much fear. So why, Preston, why are people choosing fear? That is like what needs to be addressed. Because I just think it's they're still believing the hype. They just believe the hype, the misinformation. And I think it's up to I know I'm sorry to be redundant, but I just don't see the quote government exactly getting behind this movement. I don't
Yeah.
see the NIH getting behind this movement. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So here we are.
Well,
And
wonderful.
yes,
Yeah, that is a great quote. So thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing everything about your journey with everything you've been through and your amazing entheogenic experiences and the awesome outcomes you've achieved
no,
since
it's
then. So
wonderful. I truly hope that this, just continues to move on, that this quote movement grows and more
yeah,
people will start to tout like, yes, I went through it and yes, it does do blah, blah, blah. And so
yeah,
instead of being afraid of the stigma that they make, their job will find out they did ayahuasca. I mean, it's so silly. It's just so silly to me. But it's reality and it's unfortunate. So one must take a stand. It's all there is
yep,
to it, you know?
yep,
So,
absolutely, absolutely.
yes.
Well, Michele, thank you so much for coming here and sharing all this. This was a great amount of information from you. I'm very grateful for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
That concludes this edition of the Stoned Ape Reports. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Instagram at Stoned Ape Comedy and subscribe to our newsletter at www.stonedapecomedy.com. Again, thanks for listening and catch you next time, Stoned Apes.